And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Greetings, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook for this Saturday, February 10th, 2024. And looking at the sea ice along areas of the southwest coast, we're seeing the ice edge melting off. And it's going to be a little more turbulent period as the storm track is going to be developing here across the Alaska Peninsula as lows lift out of the North Pacific and then up along the west coast and eastern Bering Sea. So expect this to shift around and melt off further, especially the areas Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays. We're also seeing temperatures moderate considerably up here through Cook Inlet. Temperatures this Saturday afternoon have been as warm as near 40 degrees in Anchorage. So this area of ice will also be melting and decreasing in the week ahead. Given the overall shift in the pattern, we were so much in this long, deep freeze across the interior down in through the southwest for the mid portion of January into early February, but now we're seeing a pattern where lows are coming up out of the North Pacific, drawing in milder air northward up along the Gulf Coast. Some of that has pushed us farther inland, so we've seen temperatures overall moderate significantly across much of the state compared to where they were 1 and certainly 2 and 3 weeks ago. So by the time we get into Sunday afternoon, we have the one low that, as of today, this Saturday, is located in the lower Yukon Delta. That'll be shifting north of the Seward Peninsula in the lower Chukchi Sea, with some gusty winds, especially along the northwest Arctic coast. Here comes the next low. That is the one that's going to cross the lower Alaska Peninsula on Monday and bring snow that may mix or change over to some rain as it works its way northward in a similar track. And out across the Gulf, we have a little disturbance, a trough that could enhance some showers, rain and snow showers as we go through Sunday and into Monday. And here comes that next low, crossing the Alaska Peninsula on Monday and then lifting northward. This will bring a mix of precipitation, initially some snow, but it could mix with a little bit of rain or even a brief period of freezing rain here as we go through the early part of the upcoming week. And high pressure just kind of reestablished itself here over northwest Canada. This is a warmer type of high in that we're going to see it pump milder air, especially up here into the western, southwest, south central areas of the state. Looking at the marine forecast on Sunday, we expect north winds 10 knots, waves 6-7 feet there, Dixon entrance around Metlakatla. Petersburg and through Stevens Passage, south winds 15 knots, gust as high as 35 knots, waves 4 feet or so. Southeast winds 25 knots, gust to 40 knots, Lynn Canal with waves 4 to 5 feet. For the outer coast, south of Sitka, winds will be southerly as high as 30 knots near and south of Sitka, waves 11 to 15 feet, and then winds flip around to the southeast 30 to 15 knots from outside of Yakutat to Cape Suckling with waves 11 to 14 feet. And then on Monday, winds are generally going to go around to the north. Inner channels, north winds to 15 knots, waves running a few feet in Lynn Canal and down through Stevens Passage. And then as we get out here toward Dixon Entrance, waves as high as 5-6 feet. Outer coast, 15-knot winds out of the north with waves generally running right around 8-9 feet. And for the northwestern Gulf, look for southeasterly winds from Prince William Sound down along the Seward coastline, 15 to 20 knots, waves 3 feet within Prince William Sound. Southeast winds to 25 knots there through the entrance of Cook Inlet with waves running 5 feet or so. On Monday, with that system cutting across the Alaska Peninsula, it's going to increase an easterly flow. East winds to 25 knots, 5-6 foot waves within the broader expanse here of Prince William Sound. 25 to 30 knot winds outside of Hinchet Brook Entrance and along the Kenai coast. 30 to 35 knot east to southeast winds near and outside of Cook Inlet Entrance with northeast winds 15 to as high as 25 knots there off of Anchor Point. And then for Sunday, Kodiak Island, southeast winds to 35 knots east of Akiak along the east side of Kodiak Island. Shelikof Strait, east-northeast winds 25 knots. Southwest winds to 20 knots as you go down along the Alaska Peninsula on the North Pacific side. And then looking at south to southwest winds 15 knots there on the Bering side. And the low on Monday will be crossing the lower Alaska Peninsula, kind of between Sand Point, False Pass, vicinity of Cold Bay. Ahead of it, southeast winds 30 to 35 knots, waves up around 15 feet or so, especially there west of Chicknick, or east of Chicknick rather. And then southeast winds on at least the lower portion here of Bristol Bay, turning northerly on the backside of the low, down through there and west of Cold Bay at 25 knots with waves around 7 feet. Across the Aleutians, on Sunday we expect southwest winds, eastern Aleutians going northwesterly, central western Aleutians 15 to 20 knots. And then on Monday, generally northwest winds for the eastern and central Aleutians at 20 to 25 knots, waves 6 to 8 feet on the North Pacific side, 5 to 7 feet on the Bering side, and then variable winds around 10 to maybe as high as 15 knots near and Kiska up through Shemya. Along the southwest coast, look for winds Bristol Bay on Sunday, southeast 10 knots, waves a couple of feet. South winds into Kuskokwim Bay with 3-foot waves. Variable winds 10 knots, 3-4 foot waves around the Pribilof Islands, and then off the Yukon coast up into the Norton Sound. We expect south winds around 15 knots with waves 2 feet where it is ice-free. And then for the day on Monday, we expect winds to pick up southeast to 30 knots, Bristol Bay, northeast winds to 25 knots out of Kuskokwim Bay because the low is coming up into this general area. Backside of it, north to northwest winds, St. Matthew to St. Paul at 20 knots, 4 to 6 foot waves, and then east to northeast winds, 15 to 20 knots out of Norton Sound and along the lower Yukon Delta. For areas south of the Bering Strait, north side of St. Lawrence, north winds 20 to 25 knots on Sunday with ice there in place. Areas of the lower Chukchi Sea, northeast winds turning northwest toward Shishmaref. Off of Wainwright, we could see 35-knot easterly gales, and then along the Arctic coast, look for easterly winds, generally 20 to 25 knots, Utqiagvik to Kaktovik. And those winds come down on Monday along the Arctic coast, Utqiagvik to Kaktovik, 15-knot easterly winds. Dropping down through the Chukchi Sea, winds turn more to the north-northeast, passing through the Bering Strait, 10 to 15 knots. And on the north side of St. Lawrence Island, we expect northeast to north winds running right around 10 to 15 knots.